negatives, right? So
Oh, okay, yeah.
32,
Okay.
33 actually.
33?
There was 33 vulnerabilities in this one. So false negatives are the ones they didn't find. So they don't find all the problems. And here's roller. This is the second one.
Were you just looking to classify cross-site scripting and SQL injection, or were there other vulnerabilities?
There was some informational configuration type stuff, but I usually don't consider those real vulnerabilities. I know it depends. So I usually when I do the benchmarking, I'll only go with like cross-site scripting, SQL injection. I mean, if it's something particular to how a particular web server was configured, I mean, because these are web server independent applications. So I don't usually there's a lot of environmental issues like that. They're never as a high though. But so yeah, so if you were concerned about your Apache configuration or something like that, if file uploads, yeah, I would say those are vulnerabilities you could not, but I didn't have any of those in these apps.
Any other injection type vulnerabilities?
No, this is all this app had, yeah. That actually I was able to verify, yeah.
That's my question. How do we know that this is the only vulnerability?
We don't. I mean, these are the ones I was able to verify. So yeah, so I actually went through all the output that the scanners had, and I manually verified them all. So as far as what the scanners reported, that's what this bit mostly is. I mean, and I did do some static analysis too. So and this, I mean, I may have missed some. It's not perfect, but it gives me a sense. This gives me at least for me, it gives me a sense of what the scanner can do, and compared to other scanners, and I like that. I like to be able to have, what am I dealing with when I'm using the scanner? That's what doing these studies has done for me. It's let me really, understand what I'm dealing with, and I can't just put like blind faith. It's like dispelled my blind faith basically, which is good, I think. So.
Did you benchmark the HP and just not?
I benchmarked HP, but I'm not releasing the results because they don't want me to, and I.
Does this confirm or negate the results of the other?
No, actually, I mean, I'll be willing to talk about it offline if you want.
Okay.
If you want to know what happened, so I'll do that. So these are actually my tracer statistics. Now, these are interesting statistics. I'm still kind of digesting it though about what does it really mean. It's a fairly specific statistic though, because you can't get these statistics on these unless these aspect logic is actually triggered. So, but you'll notice what's interesting. It's always for all the sort of inputs to the application, the scanners only trigger a small percentage in most cases. And all endpoints that's what where data is actually written, like a database or a file or something like that, or a stream. If it's written into a stream, so an entry point is an input, and then an endpoint is some type of write or stream writing to a stream operation. So writing to memory, that kind of stuff, writing to a file. Yeah, web entry points. That's the actuals, HTTP client, variables that are actually that the tracing logic was that could have been modified in the application. And here's the same thing for roller. It's interesting that comparing like it seems like the scanners did much better on coverage on this application as compared to that application. I see that a lot too. And it doesn't. Another interesting thing is it doesn't correlate to the vulnerabilities found either. That's another thing. Just because a scanner does a really good job of crawling or covering the application doesn't mean it's going to find or does a good job of finding vulnerabilities. So though you can't really correlate those two either. But at least it gives you a sense of how well is it seeing my application. So that's what I find interesting about it.
So one question: if you try to analyze the web entry points, so 7%, does it tell that it's not able to find those URLs to start with?
What it'll do is it'll tell you the file that entry point is in. So actually, yes, you can go in into the coverage tool, and you can actually find, like, see this all 81. It'll tell you what file it's in and what method and function was actually covered. So if you really want to know what the entry point is, you can go into the application and find it. And if you have the source code, you can actually map it to the source code. You guys should find the exact source file that entry point is in and what the logic of that entry point is. So if you really want to get down into it, you can. That is one nice thing about coverage. It actually lets you get really down deep inside your application.
The reason I asked is 7% looks too less, especially if we talk about web entry points, right? It should somehow correlate to what was my coverage on the URLs which were exposed and how much it could find, right? If it could find all the URLs which could have been accessed.
Yeah, but it actually, it's not just the URLs, it's also all the parameters. So these are all the actual parameters in the URL also. It's not just the URL itself. Yeah. And any type, and also other types of logic that like in the GSP will have some kind of write logic in it. I mean, it's you have to think about it more as a programmatic method rather than just the URL.
So to take an example, if I have one URL which has say 20 fields to be inputted, so probably tried only 7% of them. Or 3%.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And not necessarily even all the parameters. It's like operations on which of those parameters, right? So if it's a write, if it writes to, if the JSP, let's say, writes to these parameters or sent or outputs certain types of parameters or certain type of reply data. So yeah, it's actually the functions executing inside the application, not just the parameters themselves. Parameters are that's just data that the methods use. This is the actual function logic that's being measured. So there's a little subtle, yeah.
You mentioned that the W3AF, you're not capable of doing automatic explore, so you're doing manual explore.
Yeah.
So what exactly does it mean?
Oh yeah, that's a good point. So this is actually when I manually went through the application. This is and I tried to be fairly thorough, and I was still only getting that. I just thought that was interesting. Yeah.
So the other entry points were not really accessible.
It's possible. It's possible. Yeah, these are the entry points that the tracer application decided to add aspect logic to.
Are they visible to the outside?
It's hard to say. I mean to really, I didn't go into that much detail to really. I mean, you could go in there and really, if you follow the data flows in there, you probably could tell. But it's not, yeah, you're right, it doesn't mean, so just because it could be only 18% of this application or whatever is actually really accessible by user modifiable data. It's possible that some of these entry points are completely unaccessible or yeah, it's true.